Shana Tova, and what a year it has been. I'm sure for some of you it's been an exciting year. Maybe some of you started a business, had all sorts of dreams, things that you were going to accomplish. But let's kind of think about how did some of those plans really go. Maybe at some point, maybe not this past year, but in years past, maybe you had this idea you were going to start a business. You had an amazing idea. It was inventive, it was creative, it was exciting. You had the best business plan ever, the most creative marketing strategy. You built the coolest website for the best e-business ever. You even found a store. And after all said and done, you went and got the coolest, cutest furniture to display all of your widgets. You found somebody to take care of your business license, arrange your taxes. It was set. You were good to go. And then you received a dreaded email. The widgets were now going to cost a lot more than what you had originally anticipated. Shocking of shockings, the factory in China was having some problems. And that pretty awesome deal that you had arranged was poof, magic, gone. You called wholesalers, frantically searching out other importers and manufacturers, looking for new quotes. Only they were so blown over your budget, you said the word, "Oh fudge, this isn't gonna go as smoothly as I anticipated. I feel like I may be overwhelmed." And suddenly you started doubting every little thing. And you said those wonderful 5 words, "This isn't what I expected." I don't know about you, but I had this brilliant idea personally this year of trying to do some house repairs. This isn't exactly my story, but it kind of is a compilation of multiple stories that I experienced as a child. And I decided in my house to fix up a bathroom. Well, surprise of surprises, when I started to strip away the wallpaper, I learned that there was even more wallpaper. And then I found something even more exciting, mold. How fun is that? So before, when I had begun my experience of redoing the bathroom, where Pinterest had become my best friend, excitement was in the air. I was checking out how expensive I could find things, or inexpensive on Lowe's, and making a cool budget. I realized after a short amount of time, suddenly I may be in over my head. That the whole process of pulling out a sink, putting up some new paint, and making it look dazzling and cool, well, maybe wasn't the best idea after all. This from an inexperienced DIYer. But as I learned by speaking to other experienced DIYers, you should always expect the unexpected. I found myself saying, though, this isn't what I expected. Today, though, is Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world. And I actually, at this time, invite all of you to crack open your prayer book in the middle of the rabbi's sermon and turn to page 285. Such a fun page, after all. And what you will find on page 285 is a famous medieval piyut, or a liturgical poem, entitled Hayom Hara'at Olam. This short poem, a mere 32 words in length, opens with those famous 3 words. For those of you whose Hebrew is a little bit rusty, let's kind of remind ourselves what it means. Hayom, today, or this day. Hara'at, well, put a pin in it. We'll get back to that one in a minute. And olam means world or eternity. In the traditional service, you can notice that this is said as part of the shofar service. The shofar service has 3 distinct parts, and at the end of each part, this piyut is read. So technically, we read it 3 times on Rosh Hashanah. As I said just a moment ago, the translation of Hara'at is in fact challenging, and so I'll share with you 4 different options for how we could translate it. The Metsuda Machzora Orthodox prayer book says, "On this day the world came into being. On this day he makes stand in judgment all the creatures of the world. And by the way, I'm still looking at that very first opening sentence. Max Arzt, a conservative rabbi, said, "This day the world was called into being. This day all the creatures of the universe stand in judgment before thee." The Reconstructionist Machzor, "Today the world is born. Today shall stand before you all the beings of the cosmos." And our very own prayer book, and you can read it with me, "Today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged." And so we don't have to finish, just the first sentence was good enough. I mean, you can, but not for the purpose of this sermon. We can read or understand that the first two translations, Max Arzt, the conservative rabbi, and the Metzuda Machzor, an Orthodox version, both turn Rosh Hashanah into a historic celebration of creation. On this day, the world came into being. And yet, when we look at our prayer book and the prayer book of our Reconstructionist friends, they focus on being born. In other words, the translation here is asking us to think about how we might think of today and make ourselves and our world anew. So, are you ready to be renewed this holiday? Remember that one word I mentioned earlier, hara'at, and how I've been kind of playing with it. And why is it so difficult to translate? Well, I'm a nerd, so let's do a deep dive and find out where the word comes from. And it comes from actually the book of Jeremiah. But I wasn't the one who pointed this out. Tanya Rabbatai of the 13th century actually focused in on the same issue. A quick reminder for those who forgot who Jeremiah was, he was a prophet, not a bullfrog, in case you were curious. He too, though, didn't have an easy time in life. In fact, he was called the weeping prophet. And we learn that he was called by God, some say in Jeremiah 1 when he was in the womb, but others would argue when he became a teenager, to serve God. And during the process of him being a prophet, he was jailed, he was scorned, he was targeted, and he was abused. As a result of this suffering, he was, after all, began to ask that challenging question when many of us face suffering: why? In a particularly challenging passage where he cried and wept about his suffering, he describes how God is both with him and yet he feels alone in his torment of trying to help the people around him. He wonders, in fact, why he was even born. He says, quote, "Because he did not kill me before birth so that my mother might be in my grave and her womb big with me for all time." In the English, the problem arises in the phrase, "she bore a child," which can be actually synonymous with "she gave birth to a child." And yet for the prophet Jeremiah, there's truly actually a divergence in meaning when we look at the Hebrew. Jeremiah places the bearing of a child as eternal. Jeremiah inverts pregnancy from being a 9-month occurrence to an eternal phase of an existence for his mother. In this grotesque fantasy, Jeremiah's mother becomes his grave in a sickly, never-ending pregnancy. The medieval poet approached this image as not an eternal pregnancy, but rather the outcome of pregnancy, birth. The word olam from Jeremiah, where he said eternal from world became eternal, and hence we recognize Rosh Hashanah as the birthday of the world. And I want to pause and take a moment just to talk about pregnancy, not Jeremiah's, but the first one I ever went through. I remember the very first ultrasound, that picture of that blip that kind of looks like there's actually something in there, and you scratch your head and wonder, which later became my first child, Aiden. And I remember all along the way being cautious with my diet, walking, swimming, daily doctor's visits, conversations with my mom, all sorts of expectations of what it would be like. 9 months of expectation, 9 months of prayer. And yet, as I was working with Gabby, Rosen Avery, and Jordan Avery, whose baby naming I did just a few days ago, or Brit Chaim, forgive me, who I did just a few days ago, and putting together their ceremony to celebrate the birth of their son, I shared with them a prayer which they chose to use, and it was so fitting in thinking about expectations. It is in the spirit today, quote, that Jordan and I declare to you, your existence is your possession, not ours. Out of our love and concern, we intrude in your life for a little while to help you live and grow. It is our hope and our prayer that we will know when the time is done, for then with grace and respect we must return to you what has been ours, only in trust, that which has always been rightfully yours, yourself. You are not in this world to live up to our expectations. You are you, and we are we. Blessed are you, our child, in the newness of your existence. Well, we all struggle with expectations. Sometimes those expectations are obvious. We expect pregnancy to last, 9 months. We don't expect it to be inverted into an eternity. We expect housing projects to go a specific way, not that our beloved house will turn into a money pit. We expect new jobs to be fun, exciting, and easy. But these expectations are the obvious sort. These are the ones that we can easily find ourselves saying, I expect this, or I expected that. We're conscious of it. But what about those hidden expectations? Those that can in fact be just as Jeremiah describes. Prison pregnancies, where the thing that was to be born never happened the way we wanted it at all. The deep truth is, when we take on a life-altering project, adventure, or new opportunity, we prepare. If you or me, that preparation involves reading 10 to 15 books on a specific topic, talking to friends, family members, checking out TikTok videos and YouTube clips, eventually assembling a picture of what I imagine, or we all can imagine, the outcome to be. What we don't see is our hidden expectations. We don't see how some of our ideas can in fact prevent us from seeing what is right in front of us. Let's take for the example earlier, the budding DIYer. This DIYer didn't expect to find mold under the wallpaper. They didn't expect there to potentially be a leak somewhere in the house. They didn't think there would be problems. And suddenly the aspirations of being a true DIYer became a little bit more diminished. We plan for what we know. We create plans around our expectations. What we don't realize is that those plans, expectations, and ideas can be the lens through which we see the world and the limiting way in which we engage in the world. For Buddhists, the space between those expectations and reality is where suffering occurs. I would argue the same could be said by having conversations with any psychologists. So I invite you to think just for a moment about something in your life where you are just not yourself. You are responding to things which may not even be there. Take a moment, think about it. Those moments when you say it's not supposed to be, maybe it's your finances, weight loss, new job, child, children, marriage, retirement. Maybe you feel powerless in those moments and have even cried over them. To be honest, we've all been there. Look at your life with an honest lens, through an honest lens, an open reflection. Are you ready to recognize those unrecognized expectations which you have attached yourself to, maybe even for years? Have you placed yourself unknowingly in an eternal pregnancy? The marriage that was supposed to be a partnership where emotional needs are met, yet again and again just aren't quite, and you sit there wondering in pain why? The weight loss journey that was supposed to be easy, after all, you can just sign up for Weight Watchers and the weight's just gonna fall off magically. The gym, here I come, but well, it doesn't quite work out that way. The new business adventure that was gonna be a fun, easy way to make a little money, and then you sit there and you turn out, wasn't quite like that. Those expectations can in fact be our prison. They prevent us from living out our real lives. They are the mirage in which we wander to in the desert, diverting us from our true journey in life. They cloud our ability to see and sap our power to do. We mourn what is not there. So I have some homework for you. Of course, why not? I'm the rabbi and it's Rosh Hashanah. Go and find those hidden expectations, beliefs which are in fact your pregnancy prison. Think about a situation which produced a lot of anger and sadness. Think about those moments when you say should, would, could repeatedly around an issue. On a piece of paper, I invite you to write down what your vision was. All of it in great detail. And then on another piece of paper, write down the reality. Then look at it. Did it solve your problem? No. Did it make it better? Probably. Why? You're no longer beholden to that eternal pregnancy. You can perhaps see how being in the place that you are gives you opportunities for how to get out of it and solve it. Because if you are stuck in that place of hidden expectations and you're just constantly struggling, you can realize you can become exhausted. So I will tell you what our medieval poet did in Hayom Hara'at Olam. He said, Hayom is the day to change. Today we can let go of that other place and open ourselves up to something amazing. In the words of Rabbi Norman Lamb, an Orthodox rabbi and former head of Yeshiva University, quote, each of us possesses wonderful native abilities and marvelous inner resources. Either we can opt for Jeremiah's Hara'at Olam, remaining forever with our greatest human treasures locked up within our hearts and never brought to fruition, like a child prodigy for whom a brilliant future is foretold, but who never manages to translate that genius into real achievement, or we can joyously proclaim Hayom Hara'at Olam, that today we shall express those capacities into reality. For today we shall fulfill ourselves by giving birth to a new and fascinating world. Jeremiah's eternal pregnancy was about hopes unrealized, and I would argue unmet, because we never could see real life beyond the pregnancy itself. The truth is, we all know people who talk about the same thing over and over and over again, stuck in a loop of a thought, stuck on that failed business venture, stuck speaking longingly of days gone by. Jeremiah believed that he could not fulfill his task and focused down on that. The people would not listen. He was tired and he was hardened. The poet boldly redefined Jeremiah's words and said, we can in fact be released from that prison. And I invite you, let go of your eternal pregnancy. The world is an ever-evolving place. New opportunities are on the rise. I know we want to plan and predict. It's a little bit safer feeling, but I invite you instead, deal with your reality. You may find it to be even sweeter than you ever dreamed possible. Shana Tova.